Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Good News Now. I'm Jay Williams. I'm here with Robert Hoff, and we're here with Wayne Sanford, the fire chief. We're here to discuss the East Haven Trolley Museum, which, as you can see, we just had a great tour of. So, what did you think of the Trolley Museum, Dan?
Well, I always enjoy getting out and seeing the Trolley Museum. The crowds that are there are nice and friendly. I enjoyed seeing the many young kids that came to see the trolley and learn about our past.
Right.
They have everything from a cartoon booth to demonstrations on how the engines work, to you're able to ride upon the trolley themselves from East Haven into Brantford. Many of the volunteers we spoke with were friendly and very personable. And I hope to learn more about the trolley today from our good friend Wayne Sanford.
Yeah,
So, Wayne, you've been involved with the Trolley Museum for a long time now?
about 10 years now. I joined just about 10 years ago. And as you say, very appropriately, once you get involved, you're preserving history.
Mm-hmm.
And trolleys are very unique because it gives you an opportunity not to just learn about history, but you experience it, because you can ride on the trolley cars and really feel the way it was for our grandparents, riding on the trolley cars, going to work, probably going to school, because the trolleys were the means of transportation from the late 1800s until around 1947-48, right after World War II, and then everything kind of switched over to buses.
Right, and then the advent of the car.
Yep. Yeah, Mr. Ford really did
Right.
trolley cars in,
Right.
But interesting, trolleys are very green. Today everyone is talking about being green and being, reducing our, quote, carbon footprint. And trolleys are very, very economical to run. Even today, with the cost of electricity today, moving 50 people in a trolley car is cheaper than bringing them on a bus or having them go in a car. The trolley is by far the cheapest way of moving people around. So it's kind of interesting.
Very, very environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
I know San Francisco, I believe, still runs their trolleys.
They have two types in San Francisco. They have a cable car, which everyone hears about,
Right.
and then they have a traction system, which is identical to ours, which stays on the lower area, does not go over the hill in San Francisco.
No.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe I could share a little bit about about how the trolley line started.
By all
and then
means.
a little bit about the museum. Our trolley line that we operated on is considered, it's a National Historic District. It's one of the oldest continuously operated urban trolley lines in the United States. It opened on July 31st, 1900. And it actually started as a private line, 3 men. And if you're from Brantford or drive through Brantford, you'll recognize these names. One owner, one of the people who paid for it was Mr. Hammer. Mr. Hammer owned Malibu Iron Fittings, MIF. Mr. Young was another businessman in Brantford, and of course we have Young's Pond. And then the last owner was Mr. Halsley, and we have Halsley Avenue named after him in Brantford. Those 3 men had businesses in Brantford, and they had no workers, and all the people lived in the city. So they said, you know what, if we put a trolley line from the East Haven Green, where the trolley line ran, down to the shore, and run it over to Short Beach, to where the area of MIF was, the Malibu Iron Fitting Factory, which part of it is still standing, then we could get workers to come to our factories. So they paid for the line to be installed. It opened, just as it is today, one line going from the East Haven Green, and it stopped at the Green. It wasn't connected. So you had to come from New Haven, get off the regular trolley, the one going to Memorgwin, wait for the next trolley to come in from Brantford and hop on that and go over. And they created the Brantford Electric Railway Association, and that's really how the line started. After a couple of years, they said, this is crazy. There's too many people riding it. So they actually, by 1910, they sold the line. The Connecticut company bought it, And then they put 2 tracks in, one going east, one going west, because the ridership increased so much
Right.
that they had to run 2 cars back and forth at the same time, and then they connected it. At one time, you could get on a trolley car in Dover, Delaware, ride all the way along the shoreline through Connecticut, go through New Haven, come to East Haven, go out through the Brantford line, and go all the way to Stony Creek, and then through Guilford out to Ossaback. You could go all the way up to Sebago Lake, Maine, from Dover, Delaware. But usually people only rode it for a short distance.
Right.
They didn't ride it because we had trains and still stagecoaches. We had horse-drawn stagecoaches when trolleys first went into business. So trolley cars are credited with urbanizing America. People went to Brantford, they worked in Brantford, and they said, wow, this is a pretty nice town. So they started moving to Brantford. And when they moved to Brantford, they used the trolley to go to work in New Haven. So the trolley was actually brought people to the town of East Haven, the town of Brantford, and then they turned it around in a sense, and then they used it to go to work in New Haven, rather than living in the city and working in the rural areas. And there's a couple places around the country where trolleys are still, if you go to Georgetown, Washington, in Virginia, there's actually an amusement park there that you can go to, and there's a trolley car sitting there, and it kind of looks out of place. Say, why is that here? You rode the trolleys Monday to Friday to go to work. They didn't make any money on Saturday, Sunday. So what the trolley owners did is they started opening amusement parks along the water, so that you would pay your nickel on a Saturday and Sunday to go to the amusement park. So we have Seven Rock in West Haven,
Right.
was supported by trolleys. East Haven had Memorgwin. We had flying horses and a lot of little stands, and we had the beaches. We had the Memorgwin Hotel that people would go to, and some of that was funded by the railroad. And actually, there was the railroad actually put in the trolley line actually put in the first water main in the street. And if you look at some old pictures, 1910, 1912 of Memorgwin, there's a big water tower there that was put in by the trolley industry so that they could have water in the street for the businesses. So trolleys not only were about moving people, they wanted to move people 7 days a week. So they actually opened up many of the amusement parks in the areas to get people to ride the trolleys on the weekend. They wanted your money 7 days a week, not just 5 days a week. So trolleys, I'd say right after World War II, the trolley cars were bought out by this company. I'm sure some people watching us will recognize this name, called the Standard Oil Company, right? You heard of it?
Yeah,
Yeah, right. It's still around today, right?
Right.
So they bought trolleys which operated on electricity. What did they sell? Oil.
Right.
Diesel buses, gasoline-powered buses. So they said to the people at the time, you don't want to ride one of those trolleys. They're very old. Look how old they are. They're no good. You want to ride on one of our modern buses. So the Standard Oil Company started putting buses running the streets where the trolley cars used to run. And eventually by 48, maybe 49, that was the end of the trolley industry here in New Haven. And they really closed it down. And from that point on, everybody rode buses. The museum came about in 1945. They saw this coming. The operators saw it coming. They went to the Connecticut company and said, we want to purchase a piece of track and use it as an association. They were thinking club. They weren't thinking museum. So these guys got together. There was actually 7 of them that started our museum. And they would they bought the track that runs from East Haven to Brantford for the scrap value of the track. They gave them the property. Well, you can have the land, but just pay for the iron that's there, because the rail company was going to take it up and sell it for scrap. And so they paid, I don't know, like $1,600, which was the scrap value of the iron. And they bought that. They then went out and bought a a Quonset hut building. It was used by the Air Force in World War II and by the Army for, for basically soldiers to sleep in or to store airplanes in. It's a rounded top building, all made of corrugated steel. And we bought one of those from government surplus, and that building was the first building we built, and it's still standing. We still use it today. Today, we have 95 cars at the Trolley Museum in our collection. We have 1,100 members from all over the world, and we operate, quite often the trolleys are on the track running every day. So I'll stop. I did a lot of talking, so I apologize, Jay.
No.
But you could tell that I really enjoy being a member of the Trolley Museum, and there's a lot more to tell. But a question maybe? I don't know.
Well, Jay, I know you actually stated when we visited the Trolley Museum last weekend, you said it was your first time visiting the Trolley Museum?
It was.
And if you remember, you had an idea. You asked me, you said, what about if they decided to bring the trolleys and use those town-wide back to use for in-town? And Wayne, you mentioned reducing the carbon footprint.
Right.
Would it be a feasible idea to set up a trolley system to go from, say, Mamawagon to Foxen to carry in town?
Well, there's a lot of cities, usually cities, across the country that run these systems today. We all think of San Francisco. But
they're not the only
if you
one.
go to Baltimore, you go to Philadelphia, you go to, I was in Tampa, today they call it light rail instead of a trolley car, but it is a trolley car. And these cities use these systems all the time. There's a few I've been to Houston, Texas. They have a light rail system to move people around on the city streets, and it really saves a tremendous amount of, from the environment because you're running on the electricity, and it reduces the footprint. New Haven talked about it, I'm going to say 8 to 10 years ago. They talked about doing it. And now they're kind of mentioning it again, although I don't know how far it's going to go. Our own governor, Governor Malloy, was doing some research on bringing them back to Sanford, Connecticut. He's actually been to the museum 3 times since he's been governor. And he knows how to operate a trolley car. We taught him how to operate. So when he comes down, he operates a trolley car. But he's pretty cool. He jumps right in the car. He remembered how to do it and operate. So that's a pretty good question because some cities are looking at it, and believe it or not, the right-of-ways that trolley cars own is still owned by the Connecticut company. If you go up North High Street, just before you get to Woodview, you'll see there's their concrete trestle on the left-hand side. That's a trolley trestle. And if you follow that line across, there's actually a track that goes in, and I know the kids know it well. It goes through, and by Strong Street, there's actually a cut in the stone where the trolleys were down low underneath Strong Street, and there's a bridge there. The trolleys went underneath it, and all the way down Russell Avenue and came out on Route 80.
I always wondered what that was because I'm always running past it.
Yeah, it was a trolley trestle. Yeah. And so a lot of those right-of-ways are still owned by the Connecticut company. So if somebody came in and said, we wanted to put the trolleys back in, it's possible that some of those could be used. Those old right-of-ways could be reactivated in a sense and used to put trolleys back on. But it really, not that I tend to talk too much, so I apologize, but it was interesting when trolley cars first went onto roads. It was the early 1900s. Towns didn't have street plows. They didn't have any of that equipment because there was very few cars on the road. When it snowed, it kind of stayed there, Trolleys, when they bought the right to come down Main Street in East Haven, this was when it was crushed stone before it was paved, trolleys had to plow the street. That was part of their condition. You want to put your tracks in our street, you have to maintain the street. So trolleys came up with sweeping cars that pushed the snow off. If it was 3 inches or less, they would use a street sweeper.
Right.
Or if it got deeper than that, they would use a snow plow. We have snow plows and street sweepers at the museum. And when, like this past winter, we had those 24-inch, 30 inches snowstorms. We have a couple of plows that just push it right away. It doesn't. They're so heavy, so long, that they just push the snow. It doesn't mean anything to them. And then you have to, by hand, you have to get out and clean out the switches. But we do, when it snows, we plow our tracks. We keep them open because you never know if there's going to be a birthday party or someone's going to want to ride. We keep the line open all the time.
Now, a couple years ago, as viewers know, we got whacked by those superstorms.
Yes. Yep.
And you guys were managing to get a number of your vehicles up and running again, your trolleys.
Right.
How were you guys able to do that so quick?
Well, all the water that came in Irene and then again in Sandy was salt water. And so it decimates the motors. The motors on the trolley cars are on the bottom of the car. And they put them there because they weigh about a ton, 2,000 pounds for each motor. There's 4 motors on a car. It helps keep the trolley on the track. So when the salt water came in, it flooded those motors, sometimes 6 inches in the motor. Some of them motors were totally underwater, 100%. So a motor is like a clamshell. So if you can visualize something like this, you unbolt it and the bottom drops out, and then you have the armature that's now exposed. To get a few cars running very quickly, we dropped the clamshell down. We went in with a freshwater pressurized washer, like a kind of like what you probably use to wash your deck or use a home, and we washed out the motor with fresh water. Then we closed it back up again, and we had these special heaters that put in 150-degree temperature, and we ran that for 6 weeks to dry the motor out. And then we could do what they call meg the motor to see what we were getting for readings, if the motor was coming back up, if it wasn't shorting out in the middle of the motor. If the motor came back, we need all 4 motors in a car to come back, then we would be able to use that particular car. When Irene struck, we had 56 cars that operated the day before. The day after, when Irene left, we only had 3 cars that did not get flooded. All 92 cars got flooded, but 56 of them were operable, and we lost, 50 whatever cars, 53 cars got flooded. So we started washing them out so that we could stay in business, because when someone visits the museum, that's how the museum makes money. Your fee to attend the museum really goes into the preservation of the trolley cars that are there. We also applied for a FEMA award in Irene. They gave us $1.3 million, and that sounds really good. FEMA doesn't give you any money. It's all reimbursable after you spend your money. So like some of the homes along the shoreline that we see being elevated, FEMA does reimbursement that you typically don't give money up front. So in our case, they said we will support up to $1.3 million in repair. So right now, we've done some work. We take the motors out, we send them to a company in New Haven called Schultz Electric. They take the motors apart, they steam clean the motors, they do the bearings, they also do the resistors, they clean it all, and then they dip it to seal it so that if it gets hit by water again, the water won't penetrate it, and then the motor comes back totally rebuilt, and we put the motor on the car. It's about $25,000 to do one motor, to put it back on the car. So about $100,000 a car is what we're spending per car to do that. So with the FEMA award, FEMA pays 75%, we pay 25%. So as an example, right now, in the last month, we've, actually I should say in December, we sent a bill to the state for $36,000. They will send us back about $30,000, and we pay the $6,000, the 25%. It's I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but it's in that ballpark. They send us back 75%. And then we go off and do another car. So we're always, begging for money, particularly to do that other 25% for the FEMA match. And it's interesting, FEMA says you cannot do a fundraiser to address the storm damage. If you do a fundraiser, then they take that money and say that comes off of the total award that we're going to give you. So you can't really go out and ask people for money for that. It has to come out of the general fund of the museum. Kind of an interesting way of approaching it. But in January, FEMA, there's a lot of problems with Irene and Sandy, particularly Sandy. So we have a claim in for Sandy that they have not awarded yet. It's $1.5 million for Sandy. And that's on top of Irene, because in Irene, the motors got flooded, and Sandy, the same motors got flooded again, and then it flooded compressors and wiring and a lot of other stuff. So what we said was, when we put in our Sandy award, we're not asking for the same motors to be rebuilt twice. We're just going to say Irene will pay for this part of the work, and then Sandy's going to pay for this part of the work. They haven't given us our Sandy award yet because they're challenging our Irene award, saying that, maybe you shouldn't have got this award. But I think we're going to carry the day. We've been negotiating with FEMA now since January, back and forth, sending them documents, them asking for more information, back and forth. And I think at the end, we're optimistic that our award for Irene is going to be reinstated, which will get us back to work again. And then our award for Sandy would come in to take care of the other damage. The good thing is, and this is really great for us, is that we've built 2 new buildings. We've raised $2 million, and we have built 2 new buildings above the floodplain. So our negotiating with FEMA is that every car that's rebuilt with FEMA funds will end up being stored in these new buildings, so that they'll be 2 feet above the 38 hurricane. Now, none of us here were alive in the 38 hurricane, but I can tell you that it was devastating to Memorgwin, to East Haven. The center of East Haven had water in it, down by the east end of it. Salt and Stowe Parkway would have been underwater in the 30s.
So it was way worse than Irene or Sandy.
Well, 4 feet higher than Sandy. If they can get a vision of how high Sandy was. The 38 was 4 feet higher, and these buildings are 6 feet higher than Sandy. So that's our tool that we're using with FEMA. We think that they were very happy when we told them we had raised the money and that the buildings are built and they're there. So that's what we're working on. It's a real challenge. We do pay people to work on the motors. It's one of the few paid positions that we have at the museum. Other than that, you get on a trolley car, someone dressed like me, they're a volunteer, just like me.
Well, we visited last Saturday, and we saw there were a lot of volunteers. We spoke to one very nice gentleman.
Yes, John Aurelius.
Right.
John Aurelius.
He's an East Haven resident. He's a funny guy. He lived in Florida, and he moved back to East Haven to be close to the Trolley Museum. Him and his wife, they retired. They relocated here so that he could be more involved in the Trolley Museum. Come down to the Trolley Museum the last 2 weeks of July. There's 2 guys that'll operate. They come from Chicago. They take their vacation every year together and from Chicago, and they come here to operate the last 2 weeks of July. That's their vacation for the year. It's amazing.
I love it that much.
That is amazing.
Yeah, talk about dedication.
It's amazing that somebody gave up Florida, a state with gorgeous weather, year-round.
Yeah, to come here. Yeah.
Right.
We have another member that lives in South Carolina. He owns a condo here in East Haven. He bought it just so that when he comes to work at the Trolley Museum, he has a place to stay. He bought the condo just to have a place to stay
Wow.
when he comes to the Trolley
Now, that's
Museum.
dedication.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to become a volunteer and be, of the Trolley Museum, and let me get this name right, the Shoreline Trolley Museum.
Right.
Shoreline Trolley Museum.
As Mr. Aurelius corrected me, it's not the East Haven Trolley
Well,
Museum.
can I explain how it got its
You
name?
can.
This is
Go
really
ahead.
this is really funny. So its name was the Branford Electric Railway Association Incorporated. That was always the name we ran. In fact, if you notice, my lapels say BERA, B-E-R-A, Branford Electric Railway Association is the name. Tony Proto, you remember him? Mayor of East Haven. He came to the Trolley Museum board meeting one day and he said, you know, you guys, you got your name, the Branford Electric Railway Association, but you get on and off the trolley in East Haven. Now, I'm not saying you have to change the name to the East Haven Trolley Museum, but, you know, did you ever think about changing your name to something that wasn't East Haven or Branford, because you get on and off in East Haven? He said, people are confused. Why would I go to the Brantford Electric Railway Association in East Haven? So he was the one that actually caused us to change the name to Shoreline Trolley Museum. And if Tony had, if he was, had stayed mayor for longer, if he had his way, there'd be a trolley track going all the way to Memorgwin. He really wanted East Haven to have something very, very unique and have the trolleys just one line right down the center of Hemingway, down the center of Co Avenue, down to Memorgwin, have a turnaround just like it used to be, right where the Sandpiper restaurant is.
Oh, yeah.
There was a turnaround there so the trolley cars would go back up again. And so Tony is the reason that we have Shoreline Trolley Museum. Interesting. Sorry to take you off track.
Oh, that's all right. I was just going to say, if somebody wanted to come down and volunteer, how did they go about that process?
Well, we're in East Haven on River Street, right behind the town green. And it's well marked where we are. There's signs that tell everyone where we are. If somebody is interested in volunteering at the museum, we're always accepting volunteers because we constantly rebuild trolley cars. It takes about 10 years to rebuild a car, to strip it down, to do the research to see what color it's supposed to be painted, because we painted the original color, and then rebuild the motors and do all that kind of work. So we have a number of people from East Haven and Brantford that are active volunteers at the Trolley Museum. Two of them, one of them just finished a car. Lives on Laurel Street on the north end.
Right.
And he just finished a car, worked on it for 10 years. And another one is about 80% done. And another member lives down here in the southern part of the town in Memorgwin, and he's just about finished doing another car. And we have another guy who's a Brantford fireman that just finished working on a car, an emergency car, and that one is operational, and that car is just about done. So if somebody's interested and you like woodworking, because the cars are almost all built of wood, tremendous amount of woodworking skills. There is some welding and mechanical skills, things like that. We have our own machine shop. We have a wood shop, and we build our own windows. We build our own doors. We basically do all that work at the Trolley Museum.
Jay and I being history buffs, and of course yourself, one of the things we notice is each trolley car has its own distinct personality. It seems like.
Yes.
And one of the Jay's favorite.
Oh yeah.
Was the let me get, if I get the same, the party trolley.
Oh yes, yeah, the party car.
It's like every trolley is like used for something different. It seems like.
Yeah.
And that one stuck out with me.
Yeah, the party car, car 1602, was built in 1911. It just turned 100 years old a couple years ago. By the way, the average age of our trolleys in our collection is 102 years this year. So the average age of our trolley is 102. But car 1602 was actually used right here in the New Haven area, and it was used in what they call the Owl Run. And it would run from Seven Rock out on weekends. And the reason that they would use it, and you sit on the side, the seats are outside this way, and there's a concrete floor in the trolley. It's a very heavy trolley car because of the concrete floor. And the reason they made it, because of experience, sometimes people might have had a little bit too much libations in Seven Rock. And so there might have been an accident on the trolley car on the way out of Seven Rock back to New Haven to the transfer station. So they put in the concrete floor so when it got back to the station they could just hose it out. And that's why it's so we use it for our birthday party car because there's a lot of cake and things that get squished into the floor and it's easy to clean. But it was one of only 6 cars of its style that were made in the world, and that's the only one left that operates. Yeah.
Now you just mentioned birthday party car.
Yeah.
If somebody had a birthday party, an anniversary, a special occasion, how would they go about renting that car or using that car for that?
Well,
occasion?
either they could do it on our website, shorelinetrolley.org, and you could do it that way. You can give us a phone call and schedule it. We do have an office person that works from 9 to 5 days a week. and they could schedule the birthday party. Most people do it by the internet, though. I would say that probably now 85 to 90% of our bookings are done online, where people go to the website, there's a place to click to say, you know, birthday parties, I'm interested. They'll send us an email, give us a date, and there's a little form you fill out, date, time, you know, what it's about and when you would like, you know, and we would answer you saying yes. Like today we have 2 parties. This is a typical day. And we have one this afternoon at 1:30, and then we have another one this afternoon around, I think it's at 6:30. We have somebody wants to go for a party, but they want to go later in the evening so they can see, you know, the sun setting or whatever, enjoy the sunset. Because we do ride directly across the marsh, and we do run through an area that's a bird sanctuary. We have a number of osprey poles up with nests on the top. We probably have a dozen of those osprey poles up. Those are put in by a group from Brantford, an estuary group. And right about now, the babies have been hatched in the last week. So when you go by in the trolley car, you can see Mom in there and Dad, and you'll see them flying in with fish, and they'll be feeding the babies with the fish. And then probably by, I'd say maybe the end of June, early July, you'll start to see them flying. And then by the end of July, they're gone.
Right.
And for the summer. But they've been here for about a month and a half. They've had their, you know, you can see the mom sitting on the eggs the last couple weeks, waiting for them to hatch. And then they'll, you know, by the end of July, they'll be gone. So you can see the birds, you know, we go pretty close to a couple of the poles so that you could actually see the little heads sticking up, the babies.
Now, what are the normal, if somebody says, gee, I want to go down and check out the Trolley Museum, it sounds interesting. What are the normal hours then?
Well, right now we're open 7 days a week until Labor Day. From Memorial Day to Labor Day, we're open 7 days a week. Prior to Memorial Day, we're open weekends. After Labor Day, we're open weekends. So Labor Day is what, I forget what the date is this year. It's the first weekend in September, I think. I'm pretty sure it's the first weekend in September. So it's early because I think the Fall Festival is like the 12th or 13th. So it's got to be like the 3rd or 4th. So after Labor Day, we run weekends. And we run weekends through September and October. We take November off. We don't operate in November. And then in December, we run again with the Santa program, and that runs right up until just as close to the Sunday before Christmas, whenever that is, then we stop operating.
So you have the whole line is decorated for Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we're switching this year. We went out last year. We went from New Hampshire all through Connecticut, anywhere there was a store that was having a 50% off on Christmas lights, we went. And I can't tell you how much we spent on Christmas lights. We bought all LED lights, which is a big deal for us. Our electric bill, you would not want to have our electric bill at home. So anything we could do to cut our electric bill down is we work on it. We give the UI over $20,000 a year. For electricity. And so we bought all these LED lights, and we probably are going to double the number of lights that we had in the past years. But here's an interesting thing. I don't know how, when you think about it. Jay, you are so typical of a person that lives in the area, that lives here and has never gone to the museum. If you meet someone from East Haven and say, hey, could you tell me where the Trolley Museum, their first thing is, I know there's one in East Haven, but I've never been there. Mm-hmm. And, it's so interesting that we have this treasure right here in East Haven, in Brantford, in the New Haven area, and people that live in the area don't visit it. Last week, I was operating on Monday, this past week, because that's the fun part, is to operate the cars. I was operating on Monday. I had a couple from England, a couple from Germany, another couple from Australia, from New Jersey and New York, and I forget where else. There was another couple there that were maybe from the area. So here are these people traveling from all over the world, coming to East Haven, to get on a trolley car, and usually, when they say, gee, where's a good place to eat, we recommend East Haven restaurants for them to go to.
Obviously.
And yet, people in East Haven they know that somewhere in East Haven there's a trolley museum, but they not where it is. So I would encourage those, the people that are from East Haven that may be watching this show, please consider coming to your trolley museum because it's in East Haven. And, we do a lot of things. We support the East Haven Chamber. We do Boy Scout merit badge programs in the fall, no charge. It's open to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. We do astronomy and railroading merit badges. That's provided for the children at no charge. I think in this program or somewhere in here, you're going to show our relationship with the Greenway Trail. We're very close with the Greenway Trail. We work with them on a number of projects. We give them for their big event, free rides. We give a lot of free tickets out for fundraisers that are running all over the state of Connecticut. There's a fundraiser for this person that's got a disease or something. We give, if someone sends us a request and says, "Can I have free tickets?" we give them free tickets for events like that. And we work with charters too. We actually have charter buses, about 45 a year, come in from New York and the surrounding area. They ride the trolley museum, they go to lunch, and then they go to Thimble Islands and ride the boat on the Thimble Island cruise. So between the three businesses, Chowder Pot, the trolley museum, and the Thimble Island tours, we actually promote and do about 45 charters a year, and it helps all three of us stay in business. So if you live in East Haven or you're in Brantford, and watching this show, please consider stopping down and seeing your national treasure in your own town.
So is there any special events you got coming up?
Well, the end of July, last weekend of July, we have Superheroes Weekend. And I don't know what you're a fan of, but I've heard that Spider-Man and Superman and possibly Batman and Robin and a few other people are going to be there. I'm not sure. And then the next event we're going to do in a big event is October, our Haunted Isle. The Haunted Isle is in the evening, and that's for adults. We do not like children to go through the program, but some people do bring children through. And during the day, we do what we call Pumpkin Patch, which is designed for children. And we order pumpkins, usually the little sugar pumpkins, and every child that comes to it gets the pumpkin. They get to decorate the face, and they leave with the pumpkin. We are an educational institution, so we're a little bit nuts about that. So when you get on the trolley car, we give you a little bit about history of trolley cars.
Of course.
And then you go down, you do the event, either see the Easter Bunny, or you see Santa Claus, or you see go through the Haunted Isle, or do the Pumpkin Patch. You do some event, and then we always give you just a little bit of history about the trolleys and how they impacted our society. They really made a change in our society.
They played an important part.
Yeah.
Basically, it turned people on to moving to East Haven or Brantford that were living in New Haven.
Exactly.
To get
It
closer
opened that
to their
door.
jobs.
Yeah.
Right.
The only way you could have got to East Haven and Brantford in, let's say, the turn of the century, not this last one, the one before, 1900, was to take a stagecoach pulled by horses,
Right.
take a steam engine locomotive, or maybe if you were lucky, you'd walk. And that's about it.
If you were that ambitious.
Yeah, or ride a horse.
Right.
Because there was not. So think about how innovative the trolley cars were in 1890, 1895. So innovative that you either walked, rode a horse, took a stagecoach, or took a steam engine. And along comes trolley cars. And they only lasted for about 50 years. Really amazing.
And I noticed as we were riding on the trolley car, there's you mentioned the ospreys, but
Yep.
there's also a little picnic grove.
Yes.
Whereas a family wanted
Yeah.
to have a picnic, they could
Yep.
have their peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Or,
Yeah, we actually have two picnic groves. One is in the yard with all the buildings, and so it's easy to see the other cars. And then the other one is further down the line, which is in the middle of there's a little outcropping, high ground, that sticks out into the salt marsh area, and you can have a picnic there as well. So there's two picnic groves that we have. And we get a lot of school children. This time of year, in the springtime, a lot of schools will looking for it to go on a tour, especially those that may not have a lot of money. Parents don't have a lot of money to go on a large tour, like to Washington, D.C. or something else. We get the kids and we give them a tour on the trolleys.
Yeah, we noticed the children that were on the trolleys with their parents. Whenever the conductor would ring the bell or something, their eyes would light up this big.
Yeah. Yeah. If you rent, typically if you're a birthday child and it's your birthday and you rent the trolley car for a birthday, we usually if the birthday child is tall enough to look out the window, we usually let the birthday child operate the car for a little bit. It makes for nice pictures. They get to ring the bell as the trolley moves. So we try to be as interactive as we can. It's a living museum. A living museum of history.
Mm-hmm.
Well, never let this guy operate the trolley car, Wayne.
All right. Well,
Yeah, because I'm liable to send it to North Haven instead of Brantford.
well, in Hurricane Sandy, I will tell you this. In Hurricane Sandy, we did call Mayor Maturo, and I said to him, Mayor, I said, we have a big problem coming. I said, they're predicting the storm to be higher. And I said, we really need to get cars as high as possible. I said, they will run on the asphalt. So if you come down to the museum, you will see tracks. You will see the lines in the asphalt where we drove the trolley cars right off the end of the track and right up River Street. And, we talked to the mayor, and I said, look, it's going to make a mark in the street. And, Mayor Maturo is very supportive of the museum. He's been at many, many events down there. And he said, look, you do what you have to do. A typical trolley car that operates, $850,000 to $1 million is what that car's worth. So, we saved a couple of extra cars thanks to Mayor Maturo because he allowed us, to bring the cars off the end of the track. Yeah, it marked the street up a little bit, but it saved a couple $1 million worth of trolley cars. So,
Exactly.
And they're an irreplaceable part of our history.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Roads can always be fixed.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Exactly.
So,
Well, we encourage, as Wayne has mentioned, we encourage anybody watching this in Brantford, in North Haven, in East Haven, wherever you're watching this in your comfort of your home, to come out and visit the Shoreline Trolley Museum. It's something you'll enjoy from the time you step foot on the property, speak with the volunteers, watch the various films, ride on the trolley. It's something you don't want to miss. Wouldn't you agree, Jay?
I would definitely agree with you. I had a great time
well,
last week.
welcome back anytime.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Thanks for having me.
Definitely.
we thank you very much.
Yep, no problem, Jay.
Yeah. Pleasure.
It's
Come
always
back
a
again.
pleasure being here. And,
Right.
as you say, very appropriately, it's a treasure. It's a national treasure here in East Haven. And we would like to encourage the people that live close by to come on down. I mean, an average tour, hour and a half. You don't have to look at all 95 cars. But, you figure about an hour and a half. It's a great place to bring visitors that come from out of state, that they come visit for the summer, say, what do you want to do? Bring them to the Trolley Museum.
Definitely. Well, thank you very, very much.